Hello, and welcome to Curtains of Fire, the student-made edition. Today we are joined by political science students William and Jacob, who will discuss the pros and cons of the federal bureaucracy and relate their discussion to whether or not this phenomenon is necessary for the United States government. Jacob, let's start with you.
Federal bureaucracies are an important part of our government. Without them, the laws, policies, and regulations that are passed by the federal government would show no true effect. Members of the government, including the president, can only be in one location at one time, and it is physically impossible for them to enforce laws and practices across the United States. There are simply too many individuals and too many states to regulate. For example, think about the police, a primitive bureaucracy in our society. Without them, we would have no protection against crimes, no protection for our property, and no protection for our children. Is the president going to rush to your assistance when an intruder enters your home? I doubt it. If we had no food and drug administration, our people would become ill, sick, from medications and food that were not properly inspected and cared for. Who else is going to do this?
Jacob, these are very valid points. Why don't we ask William for his response?
Well, Morgan, let me explain. Our government is flooded with different bureaucracies that serve very little purpose to our citizens and work very inefficiently, costing the taxpayers excessive amounts of money. Who needs the Environmental Protection Agency to tell us what kind of gas to put in our cars anyway? Think about their effectiveness as well. The Division of Education, their enforcement of No Child Left Behind. What sense does that make? I haven't noticed improvement at all. Although the police might be a necessary entity, the government could easily survive without all these other bureaucracies and leave it to states to handle the enforcement of federal regulations. As Ted Kennedy would say, bureaucracies are a committee of 12 men doing the work of one.
Also very true. Jacob, what are you thinking about over there?
Well, Morgan, William's opinion may be valid. However, it's more or less an opinion of a politically uneducated citizen. If you look through the Bond and Smith textbook analyzing American democracy, on page 543, you will find a large table of pay grades for federal bureaucrats. Compared to many other jobs, the pay, in fact, is quite minimal. An entry-level college graduate can earn as little as $27,000 a year working for the federal government. With living expenses included, that's what it costs me to attend the University of Nebraska for a year. So essentially, after working for 4 years, a bureaucrat might finally get to pay off his education, if even. Pay raises are also unlikely, so this isn't really a matter of cost. Let me try for a stronger example. I would like you to think about the structure of the American government. Think about all the different divisions and all the divisions of labor it requires to properly operate. You have the Financial Treasury, who handles all of the United States financial concerns. The Department of Defense, who handles the nation's homeland security and military affairs. And you have the Department of Health and Human Services, who regulates the health and well-being of our nation. Within each of these departments, you have additional organization that contributes to the overall purpose. Even if employing these positions was a costly expense, they would still be necessary. More harm than good comes from these organizations.
William.
More good than harm comes from these organizations, sorry.
William, what do you have to say about that?
Well, Morgan, look at the state of Nebraska. What do federal bureaucracies have that we don't? We have the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, the Nebraska National Guard, and our very own treasurer, amongst other agencies as well. This is the same for the other 49 states. Why do we need federal bureaucracies to sit around and debate whether or not their coffee is warm enough? All that's going to do is lead to the purchase of a microwave. And that's exactly what these agencies are doing, debating pointless concerns, spending outrageous dollars, and putting on high-dollar seats to make themselves look like they are an important part of our government. It's all a hoax. Some of the bureaucrats shut themselves down last year during the congressional recess. And what happened then? Everything was perfectly fine, and we weren't flooded with god-awful news about higher taxes mandated for bureaucracies to go on another shopping spree. Much more peaceful and relaxing for our citizens without them, I would say.
Wow, another very good point, William. Let's talk a bit about federal bureaucracies that don't revolve as much around political concepts. Jacob, I will start with you again.
Sure. These organizations are another great point that support the need for federal bureaucracy, Morgan. Take, for example, the government corporations that protect our everyday lives and serve us in ways we don't always appreciate, like the FDIC. The FDIC is also known as the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is a government entity that insures consumers' deposits in the banking industry. Banks are highly regulated by this agency in order to qualify for such an insurance, and in turn, both financial institutions and banks are protected from the unexpected, such as robbery and bankruptcy. This is a business bureaucracy less affected by congressional actions and politics, yet another crucial part of our society. There are also advisory committees, which influence public politics, but are not necessarily influenced by them as heavily. They play an important role in the special projects and needs of the country, whether that be temporary or long-lasting.
So, William, how could the government function properly without these corporations and committees?
Like I mentioned before, with the example of the police force, there's a strong need for certain entities, however. The majority of the entities are less important, in my opinion. This could lead to the question of bureaucracy regulation. How many or how few bureaucracies does the government need to properly function and serve its citizens? My answer is very few. Too much bureaucracy leads to the exact problems we have now. Too much debate, too much regulation, and too much spending. My guess would be that more than 80% of federal bureaucracy could easily be eliminated while still allowing for a properly functioning government system.
So let's take this one step further. If the federal government had absolutely no bureaucracies, how would each of you view its functioning? Since we left off with William, Jacob, you will start. Please make your final arguments.
Essentially, Morgan, no bureaucracy equals no functioning. The nation would have no protection against terrorism, attack from other countries, against bankruptcies, against crime, or against stupidity. Congressional decisions would have no form of exercise, and laws would mean nothing. The entire principle of democracy would come to a halt in the United States. There would be no form of a valid judicial action, with prison systems and its enforcing entities becoming non-existent. The extent to which bureaucracies reach does not have a boundary, and is crucial to the success of not only our government, but also the citizens in our society. Without it, the United States is nothing.
Thank you, Jacob. Now for William's last statements.
Without bureaucracy, the United States government is much stronger and much more balanced. The states hold the power to execute federal legislation and to ensure on an individual basis that the legislation is being followed. A separation of power exists, allowing for less political conflict and more overall interest in society. Taxes have the potential to be cut, and the government is spending money in a less careless manner, helping to decrease federal deficits, while still ensuring each citizen has the potential to reach his or her successes. Education is maintained in a more qualitative manner, and security is more localized. There is much more potential for states to survive in success without federal bureaucracy, and for federal legislation to be much more effective.
Both of our candidates have presented very valid arguments. Now it's time for you to decide. Cast your vote in the political science discussion forums today. And don't forget to cite your sources. Both the Bond and Smith Analyzing American Democracy textbook, as well as the UNL Political Science 100 lectures, were used in the making of this production. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.